Well, 8:04 here on your Tuesday morning. Now to the latest on Detroit's newest border crossing into Canada. You're looking live at Southwest Detroit right now. Officials say the construction of the Gordie Howe International Bridge should be finished by the end of the year, with the bridge potentially opening early next year. Take a look at some new video here. This shows where things stand in the construction. This is the view from the Michigan side, where signs are being installed, lanes are being painted on the lines, I should say, on the interchange. There are 5 pedestrian bridges and they are almost done. Now let's go to the Canadian side of things, where landscaping is underway and crews are working on the finishing touches there as well. The bridge sits 150 feet above the Detroit River and is one of the 10 longest bridges in North America. But as you know, the opening has been pushed back a couple of times, so we're going to figure out what's going on there. We're joined by Heather Grondin. She is the Chief Relations Officer for the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. Heather, thank you for joining us this morning. I know that when things like this happen, when there are delays, you're probably just as frustrated as everybody else.
Yeah, this is a big project. It's been underway for a very long time, really since the year 2000, if we go back to the earliest conversations about getting a new bridge between Detroit and Windsor. And yes, we want to be able to be in a position to cut that ribbon and go across it just as much as everybody else
Yeah.
does.
So can you kind of go through what still needs to happen? I know I don't know if it's delays, but there are just things that need to happen before cars can go on there. There's inspections, there's some finishing touches. Can you kind of give us the punch list?
Yeah, exactly. So you gave a really good overview of where we're at from a construction perspective. Overall, we're about 98% complete. Still some work that's ongoing to finalize the bridge, do some work at the ports of entry. And, I think that's an important point. People often focus on the fact that there's a bridge, but there are also the 2 largest ports of entry along the Canada-US border and a connection into the interstate system, all of which we need to complete. But then we have to remember that we have to operate this bridge in these facilities. We need to ensure that all of the systems, all of the technology that we've installed to make this the most technologically advanced 21st century border crossing in this area works. And we need to ensure that the border agencies have what they need, the training, the people, their people having the opportunity to get familiar with these sites before we can actually open.
You actually teed up the next question perfectly. I was going to ask you what the technology is going to look like on this new bridge. We're used to the older toll booths on both the Ambassador and on either end of the tunnel there. Should we anticipate something new and different?
Yeah, at our toll booths, we're having 16 toll lanes, 8 in each direction, all located on the Canadian side of the border. What you're going to see, and some of the testing that we're doing right now, is the overhead signage so that it's clear and understandable and people know what lanes to go into. We're testing our payment mechanisms and consoles to make sure that, debit, credit, near field communication, a dedicated RFID tag is used. We anticipate that about 400 vehicles will be able to pass through each toll booth per hour using an enabled RFID tag or transponder in their vehicles. We're testing the boom arms to make sure that they can go up and down quickly. And then further than that, we are testing to make sure that from the toll booth and with cars that are being read, that's being communicated to our traffic management center, that we have a good eyes and ears on every vehicle that's going through the corridor, that if there is an incident, our traffic management center is immediately notified so that we can make real-time adjustments in our lanes so that there aren't major backups, that people aren't waiting, that people are having a difficult time moving around any disabled vehicle. So it's a very integrated technological system that we have. And with that comes a requirement for extensive testing to make sure that we can operate it and move traffic as efficiently as we've said we were going to do for the last 20 years.
So I know that the grand opening has always been kind of a floating target. We never had a real hard date on things. And I'm sure there's a reason for that, because you can't really anticipate everything that's going to pop up. In terms of and I'll put this in quotes, delays, because again, it's a floating target. Are there things actually holding you back, or is it just a matter of testing the infrastructure that you've already put in?
Yeah, it's not really holding us back. It's like you said, it's getting it done right. We really have one chance to, work towards spending the time to make sure everything is working as we're anticipating, as we're planning, and then ensure that when we do open, look, of course, there are going to be some bumps along the way, but that it's overall functioning the way we intended. So taking the time now, we feel, is time well spent.
Yeah. I am curious because you are anticipating that the majority of truck traffic now is going to use the new bridge versus Ambassador and the tunnel. What have you done to design the bridge, both in physical design and technology, to try to move those trucks along as fast as you can?
Yeah, so first of all, the size of our facility. 6 lanes on the bridge, and a really cool aspect of our overall traffic management that comes with the bridge is dynamic overhead signage, which will allow us to change the direction of lanes depending on the volume of traffic. So for example, if it's a heavy day of trucks coming from the Canadian side to the US side, we'll be able to switch, 4 lanes going to the US side, 2 coming into Canada. So really that dynamic real-time ability to manage traffic is going to be something new in this area and something that really does help to move those vehicles as efficiently and quickly as we want. On top of that is the number of primary and secondary inspection lanes at both ports of entry. So at the US port, there are 36 primary inspection lanes. At the Canadian port, 24 primary inspection lanes. And just having the ability to distribute traffic amongst those lanes. And then another aspect of our overall design and then how we're going to operate the bridge is really an understanding that commercial traffic or transport trucks moves very differently than passenger vehicles. And we've designed to reflect their distinct journeys with dedicated lanes, dedicated processing areas that really will match how each of those types of traffic moves.
Gotcha. I'm curious in terms of the inspection, because obviously you have to have somebody sign off on the bridge. Do you have one on the U.S. side and one on the Canadian side, and they only inspect up until the midway point, or how does that work?
Yeah, so no, there's a lot of integration. There's inspection that takes place throughout the entire infrastructure, and numerous people inspect different aspects of whether it's the bridge, the roadways, the buildings that are being constructed. And there is collaboration, and that's been an important part of this entire project, the collaboration between Canadian side, the US side, Canadian workers, US workers, and down to the fact that our measurements are both in metric and standard, really understanding
Which
that
measuring tape do we
there's
bring?
that need to collaborate.
Real quick, so dates now, crystal ball, January, February, March, what are we thinking?
Yeah. Still too early for us to be that
Okay.
specific. Early 2026.
Early 2026, right? See, that's how you never miss your deadline, because you could just move it around if you need to.
There you go.
All right, Heather, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Good. Have a good day.
You too.